Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that is here to bring you all the news across this great world of ours. It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most weekends or available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks!
Patrons get those perks.
Hoss.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he doesn't get paid to distract me. He does it for free. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy!
And each week we'll chat about movies, television, and whatever else in the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. His stories can only keep him company for so long. It's Juan Fernandez-Paris. Welcome, Juan.
Hey, guys. Happy New Year. Thank you for having me.
Happy New Year
to you as well. Juan is my friend from the Critics' Choice Association. I believe we met on one of those LA trips last year, maybe The Irishman, something like that.
I think so, yeah.
And so we got a chance to hang out there and get to know each other. He is a film critic for El Nuevo Día and WAPA in Puerto Rico. So hanging out on an island right now, every day for your life.
Wow.
You live on an island. What's island life like, man?
It's all you would expect it to be, except with the pandemic. But I feel that we're still locked out. That I was able to. We switched houses this week, and we were able to feel the breeze of the beach and the warmth for the new year. So yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I just got all your audience to hate me instantly. So I apologize.
Well, I kind of led you there. I apologize. We've got a little bit of snow on the ground, so you know.
I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But like I said, I've done the winter thing, and I will take the Caribbean heat every single time. So
It doesn't seem like that even tough of a choice, really.
No.
Whenever this is over, you're more than welcome to come on over and visit.
Don't tempt me, man. Don't tempt me. You'll hear that knock out the door before you're even ready.
It's like we'll be done with the show.
Yeah.
And an hour later, Andrew's like, I know there's a pandemic, but I'm knocking on your door, man.
Yeah, it's like I'm here. Hopped on a plane.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly. Well, Happy New Year to you as well, Juan, and thank you so much for hanging out with us on Sif Pop. It has been really fun. We've been doing a lot of guests over the last couple months, and it's been really fun to bring all these different perspectives and different peoples onto the show to talk about movies. And it's been we talk about, how the pandemic has affected us in so many different ways. And certainly there are many, many negative ways the pandemic has affected people and people's lives. But there are also these interesting little changes that have become a positive thing. And we used to do the podcast. Andrew and I used to do the podcast in the same room. He would come over and we'd record the podcast, and the pandemic forced us to figure out a different way to do that. And then once we had figured out that way, we're like, wait, we can bring guests on this way and do that thing we haven't done in a long time. And it's like, it's been this really neat kind of little bonus aspect of changing, of the evolution of the show, to be able to have people on. And we're glad you're one of them. We're glad you're here with us.
Well, my pleasure. Yeah, now you can talk to, film geeks from all around the world, which is pretty cool.
Right. How cool is that? How cool is that it's not just Andrew sitting, Andrew and I sitting in this room in, southern Missouri.
I wasn't good enough.
It's Andrew and I and somebody else who's hanging out in Puerto Rico. You know what I mean? Like that's really cool, and I'm glad that you're hanging out with us. So so we've got News of the World that we're going to take a look at today and review that. We're also going to review The Midnight Sky. Both of these debuting on Netflix very recently for the award season. Netflix strategy is a spaghetti strategy. Throw it all up against the wall, see what sticks. It's incredible how many awards contending, quote unquote, movies they've thrown out here towards the end of the year. We'll talk about those. We're also going to do Best Ever Challenge for Best Ever Movies with the word world in the title. And there are more than you would think. There are so many movies that have the word world in them.
I got a good list.
I'm pretty proud of one of my pick.
Nice. I like it. I like it. I'm excited to hear it. And of course, we'll do our buried treasure at the end. But let's go ahead and kick it off. Let's get into the first review. Let's talk a little bit about News of the World. 5 years after the end of the Civil War, Captain Jefferson Kyle Kidd crosses paths with a 10-year-old girl taken by the Kiowa people. Forced to return to her aunt and uncle, Kidd agrees to escort the child across the harsh and unforgiving plains of Texas. However, the long journey soon turns into a fight for survival as the traveling companions encounter danger at every turn, both human and natural. This is, of course, Tom Hanks doing his thing in this movie again. And what did you guys think? We like to kick off our reviews by putting it in one of 5 categories. Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, what are you going with?
First off, it's Kiowa, people.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm going to go with, I think I really like this one. Somewhere in between liked and really liked. But yeah, really like this one.
You're in the liked it category. What about you, Juan?
I'm going to say liked, but I was very close to just okay. And I can tell you, I think it has to do, it's kind of baffling to me that if you were in social media, or particularly Twitter, where the hot takes are just like, falling from the sky for no particular reason.
Right.
But there was this article, I will not submit to the clickbait. I'm just going to say what the atrocity that they said, but I'm not going to name the outlet, where Tom Hanks hasn't really been in a great movie. And I'm like, what? Like, and that's the thing. Like, it just wants you to click and have that discussion. So I think because it was Hanks with Greengrass, they've worked in Captain Phillips, maybe my expectations were too high, and not to say, and that's the thing, like, I'm not going to say just okay, because there is this one, like, the cinematography is fantastic, and there is this one visceral, fantastic, suspenseful sequence right there in the middle of the movie that validates it and elevates it to not just okay. So I'm going to go with I liked it.
Good. It's really interesting. We're all in the same category, but I think in 3 different worlds of that category. It sounds like Andrew is high side of liked it, you're low side of liked it, and I'm like straight up liked it. I like this movie. Right dead center in the middle, liked it. Had a really good time with it. I'm down for almost anything Tom Hanks does. I think he's so talented. And he has a movie star quality that you don't often see anymore, where it's just like, I just like it because he's him on the screen. Like, that's not something that used to be the key to movies. It used to be, I like star this person. Power. Yeah, the star power in this movie. And Tom Hanks is one of the few remaining that I'm kind of like that with. I'm like, it could be Greyhound this year. It can be News of the World this year. It can be whatever it is. And I'm just like, yeah, it's Tom Hanks. Bring it on. I love it. I will say, I mentioned, it is Greyhound, right? The boat movie that he did with Apple.
I do like that one more if we're comparing Tom Hanks movies.
Yeah, I do like
Greyhound more.
I don't know if I like that movie more. I think I like them both about the same, but I love his performance more in Greyhound. And it's interesting as we kind of get to award season and thinking about performances, those kind of things. If I were to nominate a Tom Hanks performance, I'd almost want to nominate the Greyhound performance over this one because I think it's so much deeper and more interesting. Not that there isn't depth or interesting things going on here, but yeah, so the Hanksness of it all is something that I think that kind of puts it right in that liked it category for me. Let's talk about the Western aspect of it, because Andrew, I know you're a big fan of Westerns, and this is a Western movie, right? Like, wouldn't you put it firmly in that category?
Absolutely, yeah. This is it does something that I absolutely love, and this is one of the first things I wanted to talk about, actually. So thanks for that segue. It's an element of Westerns I don't see done too often, but I yearn for, and that is a reminder that this was a time in utter civil unrest where danger lurked around every corner. For me, watching this movie, during the whole thing, I was waiting. Like, I had this sense of, there's impending doom. Any second now, there's going to be a stray bullet that just comes out of anywhere, or an arrow or something like that, where you never feel like these characters are safe. Even when they're just talking, I'm like, okay, they're talking and I'm listening, but I'm waiting. Something's going to happen. And it's beautiful. That can be led to stylization, cinematography, stuff like that. But it's just great world building. And I think that that's what a good Western does, is that it transcends and it like sends you as the viewer, and it puts you in that world and you feel like you're taken there. And I think that that's one of the best things about this movie.
Yeah, I'm not a Western fan generally. Not to say I don't like Westerns. I just don't have a lot of experience with them. In fact, I've been catching up on some Westerns recently. I watched Stagecoach, which was kind of one of the very first, Westerns. And they're kind of hit or miss with me. Sometimes I'm like, I get why this is good. And other times, like, I just watched, what was it? The Searchers, the John Wayne movie, The Searchers. I didn't really enjoy it. I don't know what it was about it. Like, I couldn't quite get into the element of that character. there's something about westerns that it's hit and miss with me, and I think it has to do with, I think the idea of that like Western mentality is hit or miss with me. Like there's a masculinity to it that I don't always identify with. You know, like there's a gruffness to it that I don't know. So bringing that to here, one of the things I liked about this Western was I felt like the Hanks character was more humble than I was used to, and definitely more, you know, trying to figure it out. And some of my favorite scenes of this movie were him problem solving and him, you know, trying to use words to do the trick of guns, you know, and that really is kind of what this movie to me was about, was this idea of, you know, your words can be your weapons even more than, you know, the iron at your hip kind of thing. And I don't know, I really dug that about this movie, so that's probably why I ended up liking this movie. Want any other general thoughts on the film?
Well, I feel that, like I get Phil's point, but I did enjoy sort of and it's not done in an outright way, so maybe, I don't know, I feel that maybe I'm seeing everything through 2020 eyes. Thankfully, we're in 2021.
Sure, yeah.
But I did like spotting sort of the divide. You know, this is after Civil War, and you know the wounds haven't healed yet, and sort of the divide between how different people have been reacting and congregating, and you know they mention the president's name, and everybody starts cursing. Like the little touches that I was like, okay, this happened a long time ago, but there are similar elements to what we have been going through. So I thought that was really smart. And I also like that the main character is a storyteller, and you know, and the storyteller through facts, because he reads the newspaper headlines, but he does it in a way. It's kind of like the first newscast, sort of before there were newscasts. It's what Hanks does. Yeah, pretty much. And I like that aspect of it. But I have to say, I mean, I think that Hanks can do this sort of role with his eyes closed. So I was sort of yearning for something different from him, and it felt very. I felt that Greengrass does the same thing he did with him in Captain Phillips. Like he puts this Hanks character in like in a boiler pot situation, and then at the end he gets an emotional release, which it makes it powerful for the audience. But because I could spot it, you know what I mean? I think it's one of these things that happens from watching too many movies, that you're not just able to get into it and just enjoy it. So it might be my fault. But yeah, like I would have wanted. It looks different and it talks different, but I felt there were too many similar stuff to what they did in Captain Phillips. I would wanted something different from him and from Hanks. I mean, not that I want Hanks to play a serial killer, but I mean, I mean, he could, but that's what I mean. Like, it's been a while since he did something like Road to Perdition, where it was truly a departure from what he did last. Like this guy and the guy from Greyhound, they're not the same, but they're cut from the same cloth, morally speaking. So I don't know. I want something else from him for the next one.
Yeah. I think. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to add on to that with Tom Hanks. I think a way I would say it is that I've seen him transform into a character so many times that whenever I see him doing a whole bunch of stuff on the surface that's really subtle, and it doesn't. I felt okay. I was watching Tom Hanks. I wasn't watching a character. Like whenever I was watching "Won't You Be My Neighbor" or "A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood," I can't remember which one. They both came out the same year around the same time. So whenever he was doing the Mr. Rogers movie, I saw Mr. Rogers on screen. You know, whenever I watched this, I'm like, okay, it's Tom Hanks in a Western. It's not like I saw, oh, that's Captain Kidd. That's not Tom Hanks. It was more on the surface, and I didn't see any transformation. But I want to go off of that because we haven't talked about Helena Zengel, who is the young girl in this movie. I think she's phenomenal. I think she does a great job where everything is, all of her emotions and thoughts are evoked through her eyes and, you know, her mannerisms and stuff like that. I thought that was the fascinating performance to watch in this one. So good on her for drawing my attention to her instead of Tom Hanks. So
I thought about, and I agree with you, by the way. I love Is it Helena or Helena? Do we know? I think
Sure.
it's Helena.
Yes.
I'm not sure. But I loved her performance. And
Johanna. We can just follow Johanna.
Johanna, yeah.
Well, and I was going to troll the interwebs and Twitter by accusing News of the World from stealing Mandalorian's plot.
Well, I mean, if you're gonna go that way, I mean, this is not the Mandalorian and News of the World, and it's not the first time somebody has to trek across the landscape to deliver a child.
That's why it would have been a troll.
Yeah.
But yes,
Mandalorian's kind of a western too. It's just a space western.
No, totally, and that's kind of the joke, right? But it really is kind of a similar thing, right? Like, Tom Hanks has his Grogu, like it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things where you're like, oh, I really see. It kind of brings the western elements of Mandalorian even into a greater light when you see it done in an actual western, and you're like, oh yeah, this feels very much the same. But I really did like that part of it, in that caretaker part of him, because it genuinely seemed authentic to me. It seemed like an authentic response for who that character was in the way that he decided to take on that responsibility and what he decided to do with it. And without giving anything away, and I don't know that we need to do necessarily a Sif spoil with this one and spoil anything, but without giving anything away, I found the end very affecting because of it. Like, there's a choice he makes toward the end, and I thought it worked really well. The other thing I wanted to mention that I liked, and why it lands firmly in the liked it category for me, is the greengrassness of it. And specifically, there is one scene that I feel like allowed Greengrass to be his greengrassiest. Like there is a moment of, I'll just say, action or intensity, suspense, tension, that he is so good at. He really understands how to bring you along as an audience with the information you need to understand why something is tense. And I fell in love with Greengrass, like many people with the Bourne movies. But then even more with United 93, which is still one of my favorite movies of all time. It's weird calling that movie a favorite, by the way, because it's not one I want to continue. It's a rough movie to watch.
Yeah.
Because it's based in reality, but it's extremely powerful. And part of that power, I do believe, comes from Greengrass's ability to put you in that moment and to really authentically make you feel what's going on there. And I think he does that here in a very specific scene, and I think it's the highlight of the movie, and
it is
one of the reasons I come away really enjoying it. So yeah, I think that's why I land mostly in the liked it for this one. Mm-hmm. Do we have any? Go ahead, Juan. What were you gonna say?
No, I agree completely. But I feel you're right. I mean, I do like more. He finds organic ways of building the tension in this and in United. And the Bournes, I mean, he does it, but I am still not over the shaky. I want to see the action happen. I don't want to be. I don't know. I have a little bit, but yeah, building tension. He's a master at that. Yeah. It doesn't matter, and doing it organically, not in a sort of build upon or aesthetic, fake way.
Yeah. Well, we've done enough praising of this movie we like. Let's cut it down to size. What were some of the things that you didn't enjoy about this? Andrew, you want to kick us off? Since you liked it the most, what are some of the things you didn't like?
I don't know if this is a sign of just seeing so many movies and, seeing twists and turns that a movie can take. But I'm picking it up now on whenever characters talk about things, and I'm like, oh, you're trying to subvert my expectations with this, or you're trying to mislead me about a story arc that's going to come to light, down the road towards the end of this movie. And actually, Midnight Sky did it as well, worse than this movie. But that's one of my things where I'm like, you think that you're telegraphing your story so witty that I won't be able to pick up on what you're doing, but really, I'm like, you're just. I don't know if it's just me seeing it so often. I'm like, yeah, you're just dragging this on. Like, you don't need to, because you're not fooling me or anybody, I think. So that's my really one negative. Other than that, I do think that this movie does have some lulls and some, I'll just call it the scene in Fort Deus Ex Machina like where I'm like, okay, this was completely irrelevant, other than
other than just another. We needed another moment.
We needed another
set piece.
yeah,
kind of thing.
Yeah.
No, I'm totally on board with that, and I think you mentioned my main negative, which is in this goes with a lot of westerns, and it is part of the reason I have trouble connecting to them sometimes. But there's a definite pacing to westerns that gets a little tedious to me, and maybe it's just a modern movie watcher's issue. But then again, I'll watch something that's not a western that has a slower pace, but I'm living in that world more, and I'm feeling like, I'm okay with it because I'm experiencing the world. But with westerns, for whatever reason, I disconnect during those times, and I had a few of those in News of the World where I was just like, okay, let's get on to the next plot point. I want to get there. But it was fairly minor for me. What about you, Juan?
I'm gonna be, obviously I am in the minority here. I did not connect. Not that I want to say that it's a bad performance, but I did not care about the kid. I have to say, which is kind of like you have to care about the kid for the journey to sort of work. You know what I mean?
Right, and that's not necessarily an acting thing. That could be a story thing, a relationship thing. Yeah.
It's just that I feel that I could see the setup of, the kid is we're going to find out, or she's gonna thaw whatever is emotionally repressed. I couldn't stop seeing the kid as the plot device or a character. You know what I mean? It's not
Sure.
that I don't agree with what Andrew said about the performance, because I think the actual actors did really well in the role. But I feel that the role feels very contrived in a way, or I've seen that kind of role in a Western before. So I kind of like, it wasn't, and everything sort of hinges. Of course, once we get to that sequence where they're basically, Hanks is saving the kid from these awful people, and it comes down to sex trafficking and all that sort of stuff,
Sure.
which is terrible. Well, then you care for the kid's safety in a basic human way. But when we get back to the story and how their relationship is built, it just felt very conventional and been there, done that type of situation. So I didn't connect to it that way.
Do we have any final thoughts on News of the World? I saw somebody in the chat, Evan mentions that his wife loved the book, so that they're going to watch it together. And this is a weak spot for me. I'm not a reader like a lot of people are. I should have learned to read by now. No, I do know how to read. But I don't get into books in the same way that a lot of people do. And I not to put you guys on the spot, whether you've read this book or other books with movies or whatever, but does that impact your enjoyment of movie when you have read the book and then you see the movie? Is that something you can see having an impact in this movie?
I find that when before, if somebody a filmmaker I was interested, or an actor was interested in making a movie, I would read the novel before it came out, and I found that the cliche, whatever I had in my head was never going to be what the filmmaker or what the actors were going to do. So what I do is, if I really like a movie that is based on a novel, then after really connecting with the story throughout the movie, I go to the novel. I haven't done that in a long time, but there is this movie coming out in February where they're pushing it for awards called French Exit. It has Michelle Pfeiffer and and I do want to read that novel now, because I feel that that one has a tricky tone to it that probably works better on the page than on what they did on the screen. So I'm very intrigued. It's the first time in a long time that I've wanted to go to a book after watching a movie, because I feel, if you've read the book, it's always that exercise of, oh, well, that didn't happen, or that was different, or I didn't see it that way. So it sort of detracts from actually the experience of watching the movie. You're just comparing it to whatever you have in your head. So I don't enjoy doing that, and it's not fair to the movie either. So,
Andrew, any final thoughts on News of the World?
No post-credit scene.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Juan, any other final thoughts on News of the World?
I mean, it's fine. I just want Hanks to do something better, or different. Not better, different next time.
Yeah.
Well, he needs to make
that.
a good movie finally. I mean, he's been around long enough. He needs to make a good one.
Yeah.
It's been all downhill since Bosom Buddies, I have to tell you. It's been crap after crap after crap. That poor guy. He needs to do something to prove that he's good.
Something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Saving Private Ryan was a drag of a movie.
Sure was.
You don't believe that.
Speaking of bosom buddies. All right, let's move on to The Midnight Sky. A lone scientist in the Arctic races to contact a crew of astronauts returning home to a mysterious global catastrophe. This stars George Clooney.
I think I've heard of him.
I think I've heard of that guy as well.
Guy.
He also directed this, correct? And he's had, a few movies that he's directed, which maybe we can talk about that as we get into this review. But yeah, what did you guys think? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Juan, we're going to start with you this time. What category would you put it in?
I liked it, and I feel that I am where you were with News of the World. I'm like, I firmly in the middle.
Straight liked it.
Yeah, straight liked it, yeah.
Okay. Andrew?
Low side of okay, teetering on didn't like it.
Andrew, you and I are in the dead same spot.
Really?
I'm having a hard time saying I dislike this movie.
Yeah.
But
for one scene. There's one scene that's keeping me from going, I didn't like this movie.
I mean, yeah, there's a couple things for me, but it's weird because it's one of those rare instances where I don't want to say I didn't like it, but I don't also want to say it's just okay, because it's a little less than just okay. And so it's like it's almost one of those. It's one of those weird instances where low side of just okay is the only way to say it, and I think I'm right there with you. Juan, you seem to like it the most, so tell us what you enjoyed about this
movie. Once again, standing all alone. I mean, I do have issues with it, and I know it kind of places me in a particular position but I did. It caught me by surprise. I have to say, it was the first time in a long time where the twist of it all caught me by surprise, and I felt like I didn't spot it, made no connection about what was happening, and I do feel there's a melancholy and hopefulness to the tone that doesn't feel smarmy or forced, that I like, which I thought that was tricky. And I don't know, maybe I'm missing Clooney on screen. He hasn't been on screen. I feel that I connected to his character. I felt for his character, and I connected to the journey of the character. And that carried me through some of the problems that the movie has, which is there this jumping of alternative stories that don't seem to quite mesh. I mean, it should be a lot more fluid, but it's not. It feels like, and this is happening, and then there's this other stuff happening, and you have to be very patient for it to wait to connect. But I didn't mind that. I was for this one in particular, I was patient. So I don't know why, but I think the Clooniness of it all, and I like it when he plays characters like this, and actually, I don't think he has played a character specifically like this, which might be the thing that
was one of my favorite things.
Carried me through.
Yeah, one of my favorite things was Clooney in this. I really think it was fun seeing him do this, and he really played the weariness of this character in a way that I don't think I've seen him play before, and that was one of the highlights for me. One of the things that keeps me from saying I didn't like the movie is I really did enjoy watching Clooney in this. Andrew, what are some of the things you liked?
No, I totally agree. You're used to seeing George Clooney as this debonair, suave, no dirt on him at all, but he's very vulnerable in this movie, and it's refreshing, and it's different from a lot of stuff. He might be close to, he might have that Syriana beard going on, but other than that, I don't really think that I've seen him play a character, like Juan said, like this before. I think the highlight for me of this movie, though, is I think this movie is visually stunning. I think that is the highlight of this movie, especially the space stuff was gorgeous. Like, it's up there with Gravity or Interstellar with, like, wow, I don't want to go back down to George Clooney. Let's just stay up here. This is beautiful to look at. Not to say, and that's not to take away from the beautiful yet desolate and hopelessness of like that Arctic setting that George Clooney is like traveling through and everything. It's gorgeous in its own sense, but I think that the cinematography, it almost feels like it's two movies, like they were cut by two different directors put together.
3 actually, because their flashbacks feels like a whole another different movie, which is a problem too. It's like there are the flashbacks to when the George Clooney character was young, and then there's the space thing happening, and then there's the survival aspect of it. So it's very much split.
Well, and there's a lack of coherence too to the movie and how it progresses through those things. Some of that is a bit intentional to keep you on your toes and keep you activated, but I really felt like the story movement of this, the story turns that happen at the end and the things you learn. I don't know that the movie led us there in a satisfying way, even if it was surprising, which it wasn't completely to me. But even if it was surprising, it didn't feel to me, what's the word I'm looking for? Complete. There was just a lack of resolution to that story turn for me because of the way it was handled up until then. But that could have just been me.
I think that there's a lack of, or there's not lack, there's too much ambiguity in this movie. There's like things where like, okay, you're telling me that this is going on with either the world or this character, but you're leaving out a lot of information about it. I'm like, but I want to know. Like, this is stuff that I think as an audience member, I need to understand. You can't leave a something this massive, this world-changing thing so ambiguous where I'm like, but why? How? What? Are you just... Is this supposed to be left up to the viewer to put in their own idea of what's happening or why this character is this way or something like that? It was frustrating, I guess is the best word to say.
Andrew, we've dragged this review down to the negatives already. We didn't even give the positives a chance to just like live in the light just for a second.
Oh, I did. I threw out all my positives. Besides that one scene where, okay, I'll just say there's a scene where there's too much of something, and it's one of the most tense, like shocking scenes I'd seen in a movie in a very long time. And that really, it elevates the movie for me so much that's where, without that scene, I don't think I like this movie much at all.
I think it's interesting because I think what we're seeing here is like, I think you either connect to the astronauts or you connect to Clooney, but because there is no intersection between those two stories, that's the movie's problem. It should really be more obvious, not the twist, but it should be more obvious thematically how one thing leads to another, and it's not clear, and it's very sloppy. It's very like, okay, well, this scene is done, and now we're in this scene, and this scene is done, and then there's no intersection of narrative that it pays off, but it's what you're saying. It's like if the payoff. I just feel that maybe, and this, I believe, I might be making a mistake. I believe that this is also an adaptation of a novel. So I would be interested to read the novel because I feel that there is a movie, a more interesting movie where we don't go to space, maybe. You know what I mean? Like if we would just live with Clooney and why he decided to stay behind and getting to the place where he needs to get. I'm trying not to say any spoilers, even though apparently... According to Netflix, this has been the most viewed in like the last 3 weeks or something like that. So a lot of people have probably seen it already. But I feel that whoever, including Clooney, did not feel that movie was interesting enough. So the astronaut, because I connected with that side of it, the astronaut ultimately feel a little bit like filler. You know what I mean? Even though it has those spectacular sequences, and the one that we're not really talking about because we don't want to ruin it. But the problem is Clooney and Gravity. It also feels a little bit with the Redux. It's like, okay, yeah, we're in space and Clooney's in charge. So of course something's gonna go wrong, and that also feels very typical in a way, and off the beaten path in terms of the main emotional journey of the film. So,
I found all the space stuff, the story stuff in space. I found it all so forgettable. I came away from the movie and I'm just trying, like, Kyle Chandler's in this movie. I love Kyle Chandler. But it was like, it almost, and I know it wasn't, but it almost felt like he was just a cameo. But I know there were several scenes of them doing stuff in space, and I know there was, it didn't mean anything to me. because of the way the movie presented it. It just felt so weird and disconnected.
I think I know why, because the movie starts off with George Clooney, and it gets you kind of invested in that story arc that you're initially set up with him, and you're like, okay, so this movie's going to be a race against time. Okay, I'm down with that. I love race against time movies, and you're progressing through that story, but then like that, it switches, and it's such a shocking and sudden shift to the astronaut aspect of this movie that there was really no transition to where you're still feeling in yourself like, but I'm supposed to be caring about George Clooney. Why are you showing me these people? Yes, and while you're thinking that's where they're doing all this introduction and character development for these characters, but you're not really paying attention because you're still invested in what's going back down on Earth. And by that time, I think that it's just too late.
Let me ask you this question. Is George Clooney a good director? Is this a directing issue? Is what we're talking about a problem of, putting the story together from a director's perspective? Like, how do we feel about his career as a director? I'm just curious how you've enjoyed his movies.
I think he's solid, and I think he's solid. But that's the thing. He could have fixed some things as a filmmaker. You know what I mean? Like it just feels like there are some things that fall in this one in particular. There are some things that fall squarely on his court, or whatever the analogy is. I feel Good Night and Good Luck is my favorite one of his.
Me too.
Yeah. But he never has gotten back to the simplicity of that, because that one was built all around that performance, and obviously the way that he handled the period and all that sort of stuff. Well, Monument Men was well directed, but the script had a lot of issues. But I just don't feel. I feel that he's not that type of a filmmaker that can elevate a so-so script. And the problem with here is the script is definitely some issues and some loops.
So he's directed 7 films, including The Midnight Sky, at least according to my research.
I like 3 of them,
and I like 2 of them. So really like 2 of them. I like Good Night and Good Luck, and I like Ides of March.
I like Ides of March, Good Night, Good Luck, and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
Yeah, I like Confessions as well.
You know what? I don't think I've seen Confessions of a Dangerous Mind.
I think you should actually add that one to your list. I think you'd really appreciate that one. But Ides of March is good.
I do like Ides of March.
And Confessions is the most ambitious, which is funny because it's his first one.
It's his first movie,
Yeah, but that one's really ambitious in tone, in particular in tone. It's a very ambitious movie.
So I guess I say that to say that's not a great track record with me, and it's like I know he's got it in him. I mean, I know a lot of people hated Suburbicon. I actually didn't think it was that bad.
I liked it. I have to say,
I actually did kind of like it, but I wouldn't say I like it like the others I've mentioned. And
just saw Phil wince. I was like, I liked it, and he's like, ugh.
No, it's more of I found it forgettable than anything. Yeah.
No, I understand. So I think it's a valid question after 7 films to go, maybe directing's not for you. Maybe just keep acting. You're amazing at it. You're great on screen. I would never tell someone what to do. Obviously, you've got the influence and the power to direct movies, and you want to do that, go direct movies. But, for me, he's batting 2 out of 7, really. So, for me, it's just kind of like, I guess it'll lower my expectations on George Clooney directed movies, which is, that's fine.
It's a shame.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I don't know. I feel we're being a little harsh on
It's
on him.
Sorry. I'm sorry, George.
George
watches the show. And,
I know.
And I feel bad. Yeah, I'm sorry, George. Do your thing, man. Pursue your dream.
Yeah. No post-credit scene. Again, there's a worthless. There's a worthless credit scene, but
yeah.
When did you, Aaron? When did you suspect? Because you said that you were not surprised by the twist.
About halfway through. But my brain does that stuff sometimes. Something will click, and then once it clicks, it's just like
Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm usually pretty good. Like, I've been able to figure out. I mean, stuff from posters. So and I'm the guy who figured out Fight Club within the first 12 minutes.
See,
while
Fight
watching
Club
it.
got me. Fight Club
No,
completely shocked me.
I spotted one of the flash frames at the movie theater, and the minute I spotted that, I was like, "Oh God, I know, I completely got it." So I was so pissed.
Yeah.
So I had to. I mean, I love Fight Club, but I was pissed at the movie theater. I kind of have to grow into it.
Yeah.
But this one, for some reason, no, not at all.
I'll admit that part of it got me. Part of it, that element got me at the end where something's revealed. But I did know one aspect of it really early on. Yeah, really early on. I figured one part out. But
Sure.
there's another reveal that's tied into it that I'm like, oh, okay, well, I did not see that coming at all. And I like that part. I do like that part. I like when a movie can, catch me doing something. But catch me when it's doing something. But other than that, I felt kind of like what I said with News of the World, where I'm like, yeah, I see what you're trying to do. I see the big reveal coming. You don't need to telegraph it anymore. It's obvious. But I will say one part of this did get me.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a SIF spoil on this one. Maybe after we're done with the show, we'll record a few spoiler thoughts, throw those in the feed as well.
Yeah, quick 2 or 3 minute one.
Yeah, this is one of those also rare movies where I'm leaning almost towards didn't liked it, but still I'm going to say watch it. Like, it's a recommend for me. If for no other reason than it's already included in your Netflix subscription. And, it's like, it's very beautiful to look at, especially if you have a nice sound system and a nice television. Like, throw that thing up there and just, enjoy watching it, and maybe you'll like it. So, I don't think it's a waste of time.
I was intrigued by how popular, you know what I mean? Like, it was number one right away. Like, that kind of caught me by surprise.
Me too.
I don't, out of everything that they put out in the last month, like, that this one is kind of like the one that's caught everybody's attention. I don't know. That was surprising to me.
I think there is. Bird Box was the same way. Remember when Bird Box came out on Netflix and it was like, well, this isn't necessarily a great movie, but people just lost their minds over it and just like took. I think there is something that can happen on Netflix, especially with movies that have an element of this thing happens, and I want to talk to people about this thing that happens. And people just really want to watch those immediately, and so they have a big spike, right when they come out. I think
the Bird Box was riding the coattails of A Quiet Place, and people were like, "Oh, this is going to be the new A Quiet Place," and that's really what drove everybody to it. And it turned out it was nowhere near as good as A Quiet Place.
And The Midnight Sky is like the new Ad Astra. Like, is that the?
Yeah, but neither of those movies are good. So.
Ad Astra's good. Come on. How dare you?
We're gonna have to expand these discussions, because I'm very intrigued why you didn't like Suburbicon, and now add Ad Astra to the mix. But I have not watched Bird Box. I have to say, like the whole concept seemed like, listening to like the synopsis stressed me out, and I was like, no, I'm not watching that. Don't have to review it on air. Don't have to review it for a friend. I am not watching that. Like, why would I?
I think that, not to do an entire review of Bird Box right now, but I think my main problem with it was a lack of consistency within the world's rules that it set up. I think that's my big problem.
Guys, we are not talking about Bird Box. I am sorry I brought it up. Let's cut this right now. We are done talking about Bird Box. This movie is come and gone. No reason.
I say we go on to the best ever challenge.
Yeah, we should.
I know. I just I wanted to hear him gag over Suburbicon one more time.
Before we head on to the best ever challenge, I did have one final question about this. Are we just going, like, is this a genre now? Is metaphorical space movie just a genre now? Are we going to get one of these every single year? Like, I feel like the last 7 years we've had one, starting back with, you start with 2001: A Space Odyssey if you wanted to, and then just kind of list them from there. But it's just like metaphorical space movies are just the thing, man. So yeah, it's weird think that we get one every year.
Yeah, people think like Gravity and Interstellar were the ones that really like pushed forward this genre. Movies like Red Planet and there was another one that a Mars movie that came out around the same time. Like, there's been movies like these for such a long time. I think it's just I think what it is the technology that has been developed to help realize and make space movies seem more realistic and so dangerous. I think that level is really what has taken it up a notch that we've seen over these past 7 years. Where like, oh, now I'm really getting to understand the dangers and the perils of space travel. Where movies like Star Wars and stuff, nobody was scared about like space. They were scared of lightsabers and blasters and stuff like that. Not the fact that there was metal surrounding you from instantaneous death, like, and you're traveling past the speed of light. That didn't freak out anybody, and I think that was a false sense of security that movies like Gravity just needed. Hey, here's a reality check. You think you're scared of that? Just you have no idea how dangerous this is, and I think that this is another good exploration of it. If nothing else, it is a good addition to that kind of story arc. That space sucks.
It lends itself to the philosophical meanderings, and there's a lot about it. I understand why people do it, for sure.
I want one where the main characters have seen all the space movies, and they're up there, and they're terrified that something's gonna bad happen, and everything goes well for them, but they're completely always subverting. It's like, when is the shoe gonna drop? It's like, I want that one. That's the next step.
Was Apollo 11 like the first movie that made you realize, like, oh yeah, space is like crazy? Don't mess with it. Or Apollo 13. I mean, Apollo, Tom Hanks.
Yeah, Apollo. Yeah, that's definitely. I think so. I think you're right. Let's move on to the best ever challenge.
Let's do it.
Before we do though, a shout out to our members, our SIFPOP members. Thank you so much for making this show possible. If you are interested in being a member of SIFPOP, we do bonus podcasts every week. In fact, we put Juan through his list of shame game this week and found out what movies Juan should have seen that he hasn't. And so that happens on the bonus podcast this week. Lots of other fun perks. Check it out at patreon.com/SIFPOP. And thank you for even considering it. Thank you for going over there and thinking about it. And if you pull the trigger, thank you so much for supporting what goes on here. We couldn't do it without you. All right, let's move on to the best ever challenge. The best movies with the word world in the title, or the world word in the title, as my tongue wants to say every time I try to say it. So what movies have world in the title? And we'll go number 5 to number 1. If you have yours higher on the list than someone else who mentions it, you can trump them. And then we'll talk about it whenever it gets to your place on the list. So we'll start at number 5. Andrew, what do you got? What's your number 5 best ever movie with world in the title?
Good friends Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are going to take us to the world's end.
I'm going to trump you on that. I've got it higher than 5. So so we'll wait to talk about the world's end. What do you got, Juan, at number 5?
In a World. That's the number 5.
I had this at number 5, and then I remembered another one that made my top 5. So this is my 6. I'm so glad you brought it up.
Yeah. No, I mean, I loved it. It's very peculiar, and it's Lake Bell is really great in it. So I think she should do more stuff actually. But it's very peculiar to the people who do trailers and that whole. That's why I said it like I said it, because everybody knows what that is. It's like in a world,
in a world.
Yeah, exactly. So the fact that they were able to build a really smart comedy around that whole thing, it's great.
Well, and also somebody who's worked in voieover, who's done voiceover as part of my career. There's some really it's obvious that whoever did this knew a lot of that world. Because there's just some really interesting.
They did. It's really based on reality, but it's great comedy.
Yep, it is good comedy. My number 5 might get trumped. My number 5 is Wayne's World.
Trumped.
We can go. Oh, you're trumping it.
Yeah.
I was going to trump it too, but it's my number 4. So are you going to trump it higher than that?
Yeah, I have a little bit higher than that.
We'll wait. Juan, what is your number 4?
A Perfect World. A Perfect
World.
Yes,
you're hitting me right where I live, man. You're mentioning the great movies. I'm so glad because this is another one that just barely missed my list. But talk about A Perfect World.
Well, it's one of those movies where I didn't know what it was. I was maybe too immature when I saw it on the big screen, and then revisited and really appreciated the subtlety. Costner came out in '93, directed by Clint Eastwood and starring him as well. Costner is criminal who kidnaps a kid, and this really non-creepy, peculiar relationship develops between him and the kid, and it's all about that whole thing of nature versus nurture in a really subtle way. So yeah, and with the whole Clint Eastwood sometimes is lately has been with the mule, and and Richard Jewell has been hit or miss with me, but I feel that this is his sweet spot. This type of sort of straightforward drama with lots of subtlety thrown in there for good measure. Which one is the one that you like? What nerve did I hit? Did you like Richard Jewell?
I really like Richard Jewell. I think that's a good.
I mean, I think it's solid filmmaking, Richard Jewell, but I did have a problem with the Olivia, the journalist. Like that part of it. I mean, that's the only takeaway. Negative. I mean, I wouldn't dismiss the movie, but the way that she was conveniently made to be the all evil as the journalist, I was a little bit insulted that was handled that way.
I'm right there with you on the mule, though. That movie's not that great.
But the Eastwood threesome. I mean, like when are you gonna get that? Two threesomes.
I have two things to say about A Perfect World. And I think we've brought this up recently, so I may have said one of these things. One of them is that when people tell me that Kevin Costner can only be Kevin Costner in movies, I point them to A Perfect World.
Yeah,
I think it is one of those performances where you go, no, Kevin Costner is an actor. Because I know there's a Costner-ness to him in almost everything he does, but he's really acting here, and he's doing some really interesting things. So I point to people to this one for that. Go ahead, Juan. What were you going to say?
Mid-90s Costner is where the actor, like, I can see how people would get that, but that whole stretch between 93 and 96, before the postman of it all, he was doing solid work.
So the other thing, this holds a special place in my heart. It has possibly the most random movie quote that I have quoted many, many times in my life. There's a moment in this movie where Clint Eastwood says, "Well, I do like tater tots," and I say that all the time. Like, what a silly random thing to remember from a movie.
It's just how Clint Eastwood says it.
Right? Yeah, it's just that voice.
I do like tater tots. Anyhow, so those are my two things about A Perfect World.
I just realized
it should be number one just for that. I feel bad now.
Sure, it should. Absolutely.
I just realized 2 weeks in a row, I've skipped my number 5 and then made my number 4 my number 5. So
Andrew, come on, man. Come on.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
We're at your number 3, so how do you need to correct yourself here?
So World's End is my number 4. Wayne's World would be my number 3. Okay. But my number 5 was Master and Commander: Far Side of the World.
Okay. Yeah,
but the trumpet. Okay.
Yeah, it's my next one. So that one's my number 3.
I haven't got to talk about any movie ever.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Master and Commander because it is my number 4. So, Andrew, you had it at 5. I had it at 4. Juan, you had it at 3, and we're to your number 3. Or no, we'd be to Andrew's 3, but he already said his 3. Right, Andrew?
Yeah. Wayne's World, which you guys trumped. So, yeah.
Right.
Now we can talk about Master and Commander.
Yes, so let's talk about Master Commander, which you have at number 3, Juan. Since you have it the highest, tell us about this movie.
No, but I don't know. I mean, we haven't let Andrew talk, so like,
that's true.
Come on, Andrew.
Andrew, go ahead. You take us into Master and Commander.
It's just a fascinating period piece of this cat and mouse, the fox hunt sort of thing, and it's interesting to see that the peril isn't coming from. Well, the peril is kind of coming from this other ship that they're chasing, but it's also the elements of the time, like just being on the open sea during that time. Like, this is a movie that's a race against time because everybody on the ship is either getting sick or, that the ocean is just being perilous or something like that. So it's a fascinating look at bringing down the entire world. Just like all you care about is what's going on that one ship, and seeing it's just stellar performances all around. I should have looked up because this is one of those movies where you think that that it's just a simple. Why am I having a brain fart? That it's a simple Russell Crowe performance, but then you look like, oh no, Billy Boyd, Paul Bettany's in this movie, and there's just like a huge cast of like, oh that guy, why are you just popping up now? Like it's kind of like how Black Hawk Down did that, where it's a whole bunch of famous people before they were really famous, where you're like, is that Tom Hardy? It's just one of those things. But no, I also like Peter Weir. I think that he makes great movies. So
and
totally agree.
We should get back to it as soon as freaking possible because we miss him.
Yeah,
Yes.
This movie is astounding. I really love this film. This film holds probably the top spot in my list of movies I wish became franchises that didn't. I would have loved to see more Master and Commander movies. And it still could happen, I guess, but I just think it just flew too far under the radar and not enough people, really got into it. But it's so good. It's so very good.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find people out of like film aficionados who have seen this movie. It's not a mainstream movie that a lot of people have seen.
Yeah. I think that means we're at my number 3, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yes.
This is where I have War of the Worlds, the 2005 War of the Worlds. I think I mentioned on this podcast when I rewatched this year.
It gets better.
And it is astounding to me how well this movie has held up, especially effects wise. Some of the world-ending destruction that's going on in this movie looks so real, and you feel like you're there and in it. And I think Spielberg's working at a really high level in this movie and bringing us a very tense, interesting, edge of your seat kind of thing. I really like this movie and like it even more after catching up on it this year again. So yeah, definitely one for me to check out.
The sound of the tripods is still one of the most haunting sounds ever.
Yeah. On to number 2. What do you got, Andrew?
I don't care what either of you say. I think that this movie is brilliant. It is one of the smartest comedies of the past couple decades. Just because it's created by Matt Stone and Trey Parker means nothing. I am going with Team America World Police. This movie is brilliantly funny. It is brilliantly funny. It's actually in my top 100 movies of all time. Just because it's such smart satire. Not the fact that it's done with puppets and stuff like that, but the jokes that they're telling. If they would have been a live action cast, I think that this would have been just as funny. But
I think it's funnier because it's puppets. I think it's definitely
parts
funnier
of this
because
movie,
it's puppets.
but I think there's elements of this movie that are joke oriented because they're puppets that they do certain things. Like the puppet fight scenes where it's just them like hitting strings at one another. That kind of stuff. It has to be. But I'm talking about like. The songs in this movie are so funny. It's some of the funniest. It's one of the funniest scripted comedies out there as far as like a soundtrack goes. It was very satirical at the time when it came out. Back whenever 2001ish. It was whenever first or George W. was president, and the big thing was that Kim Jong-un and stuff like that. It may have come out like 2002 or 2003 because I don't think it came out the same year as 9/11. I think honestly this is a brilliant movie.
You're not going to get much argument from me. I mean, I did have it at my my honorable mentions. It is so well done, and to me, it's what Matt and Trey do the best.
Matt Damon.
I almost feel like Matt and Trey kind of write radio plays and then just use downplayed visuals to just throw some visuals on the screen. Like they are just so good at crafting the audio of it all, and I don't mean that in like a audio production way. I just mean like the songs and the lines and just there's a real sense that they don't need any kind of high-tech visuals to land what they're doing. That's why South Park works. That's why and it's also why they're able to be so culturally relevant so quickly is because the production time is decreased so much.
Yeah.
And so, I think this is an example of why they are as brilliant as they are.
I would agree with that. Except I would say that they're more like a stage play is kind of more because if you look at like Book of Mormon, that's the perfect example that their storytelling is almost universal. It can work on any format almost, whether it be film, TV, Broadway, or if they did a teleplay or like for the radio. Yeah, that would probably work too.
Yeah,
they're just good storytellers.
Yeah, I don't know why you thought that I would argue against. I mean, I remember having such a blast at the theater. Like I can literally that's what I recall. Like it was such a. I remember the wave of laughter like rolling back after joke after joke after joke. So it's one of those really special, gratifying experience of having seen it on the big screen with a complete, and now more than ever, reminiscing about seeing a movie with a packed theater. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's the fact that we've been talking about such serious movies all day, and here I come with puppet South Park humor. Like, no, guys, this is actually a really good movie. I think that's why I was like, where is he coming out of left field with this weird intro? But no, yeah, I think it's great.
Juan, what do you got number two?
That's why I trumped it. I got Wayne's World. Speaking of, I'm going to knock you when I have Wayne's World at number 2.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that they make, I like the off the wall, it just spews in different directions, all of them ridiculous. And the fact that they made that skit work from Saturday Night Live and built this movie around it. It's crazy. I mean, because then the thing of it is, like, they kept the characters, did not have to change it, and they expanded the world, and the world allowed for crazy, silly, stupid, and actually very smart sometimes. And it's just very quotable, and it's just got a great soundtrack, and it's up there. Yeah, it's up there.
Is it the best? Is it the best SNL sketch to become a movie?
I think so. Most definitely.
I'd have to think about what others have actually become.
Yeah,
movies besides
I can't think of
Blues Brothers, maybe.
I like this one better than Blue Brothers. I know Blast.
Yeah, I do too. I like Wayne's World.
No, I do too. I was just trying to think of others that I know, like
Coneheads, better than Coneheads, better than Night of the Roxbury. Better than Superstar.
MacGruber? What about MacGruber? MacGruber's funny. MacGruber
is funny,
very funny.
It is funny, but Wayne's World's better. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think it's Wayne's World, Blues Brothers, MacGruber. I think those are the three worth mentioning. Unless I'm forgetting something, which is very possible.
It's Pat. Nope. I'm looking. Oh, was Tommy Boy?
Talk about something that hasn't aged well. My
Tommy
goodness.
Boy and Hot Rod, were those?
No, those weren't skits.
No.
Those weren't skits.
They have talent from the show, but they weren't skits.
Yeah.
I just typed in SNL skits that became movies, and I just went through the list of things up top. So
my number 2 is The World's End.
Okay.
So this is where I have that, and for me, there's part of this that is that thing where you're so in on what these filmmakers are doing with Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz. And then when World's End came out, I felt like people were just like, I don't know. The response to it was so muted. And I was like, this is as good as those are. Like, this is really funny stuff and really good stuff. And so I think I elevated a little bit because of that. Like, I want to fight for this movie because I feel like people think it's the worst of the trilogy and that kind of stuff. And I'm just like, I'm not sure. I think this is really good.
It is the worst of the trilogy, but I think what happened, and I 100% agree with everything you just said, Aaron, is that Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz, especially Hot Fuzz, are some of the greatest comedies of all time. I personally think for me that Hot Fuzz is the funniest movie ever made. So whenever The World's End came out, a lot of people went, yeah, it's funny, but it's not as good as those other two. And I'm sitting here going, this movie's hilarious just because it's not the greatest movie of all time, because that would be the next step after Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead. They just kept elevating,
So it's a bit of the Pixar effect, right? Like where you do so many, good things, and then it's just like, it's not quite up to that. It's only an A instead of an A+, that kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. This movie's hilarious. It is so funny. And I love the fact that we get Simon Pegg and Nick Frost switching roles, where Simon Pegg is the doofus and that Nick Frost is the straight man in this one. I thought that was a great transition. It works.
It does. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, there you go. I think we're ready for our numbers one.
Yes.
Do we all have the same number one? I'm wondering. Andrew, what do you got?
Mine's another Edgar Wright movie. Is yours?
Mine is as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have the same number one.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
That's the
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. What can I say? I've praised this movie so much. I think it's one of the funniest, like most unique stories ever put to screen. It's something that shouldn't work. It's something that should not work. This adaptation from comic to screen, the way everything is so turned up to 11, it's so ridiculous. The wham and pows showing up on screen like the 60s Batman did, or the you can actually see the vibration waves of the music. It's a very visually beautiful movie, but it just adds to the ridiculous of this world. And the whole joke of it is that this is what Canada is like. That Canada is just a magical world where all this takes place normally, and that just adds to the hilarity of it all. I think that it's perfectly cast. Everybody is absolutely amazing in this. I could watch this movie every day. Honestly, it's that good.
Yeah, Juan.
I like the speed of. I mean, like everything that he just said times 100. But I feel that a lot of modern movies don't have that sort of speed of lightning comedy rhythm to it, like His Girl Friday type of thing. And I love that it feels like, yeah, like everybody, like when he wrote it, he doused 3 bags of cocaine and then did some more drugs. And it's just like this, like, it goes so fast that it rewards repeat viewing because you may not be able to catch everything the first time around. So I love that aspect of it. And yeah, it's a concept, the whole metaphorical fighting the exes of your girlfriend. I mean, that is such a brilliant, it's realized in such a brilliant, witty way. So yeah, it definitely had to be number one.
You know, it's a movie in a lot of ways that is ahead of its time too. And I know this was only 10 years ago. It was a decade ago when this came out. And it feels like it was made for a TikTok generation in some ways. You know what I mean? Like there's a real element of meme to it. And in fact, much of this movie is memed today, and you know that just wasn't something anybody was really doing 10 years ago. So it's really interesting. I feel like this movie kind of saw the future of adrenaline-based, storytelling, or content, and put it in an actual story, in an actual movie. And it works both ways, which is, it kind of bridges the generations in that way. And I know, from having kids that are kind of right in that zone, they love this movie. And, it's kind of one of those interesting ones where, it was enough ahead of its time that it just kind of bridged generations in that way. So, yeah, I think this is an excellent choice for our unanimous number one movie with the word world in the title. There are plenty others. I will mention some that have been mentioned in the chat.
Yep.
Okay.
Evan says, "Does everyone have the world according to Garp at number one?" No, Evan.
No, but
I'm gonna go home and bite my pillow.
That was number 6 for me. I have to say,
Nice.
World according to Garp. So yeah, it didn't make the top 5, but it was definitely number 6 for me.
It's a fun movie.
Lolly says, "I'll be disappointed if Spice World the movie doesn't at least get an honorable mention."
Well, I've seen that movie. I've seen it. When you have a younger sister who grew up in the era of Spice Girls, I think you vicariously just had to have watched that movie because there's only one TV in the house, and when it's her time to watch it, it's either watch Spice Girls or go do your homework. So you watch Spice Girls.
I thankfully was not living at my house when that movie came out, so my younger sister got to watch it all by herself.
Do you guys have any others you want to mention? Throw out for honorable mentions?
Yeah, I got a bunch, so I'll let you guys go.
Okay, Juan, why don't you go first as the guest?
Actually, I don't. I mean, I mine was I kind of like stuck to it. I did not mention War of the Worlds. I didn't know because it's my first time with you guys. I don't know if they were going to be stickler with the plural or not. If it had to be truly world.
Oh, that's we should have been.
And I did not ask, so it's on me. I should have asked. So that's the reason War of the Worlds is not, because I thought somebody was going to be like, no, but that's the pro.
If you know anything about us, you'll know we're just cheaters. We like
We're
to
very
cheat the
lax.
system we like to cheat the system as much as possible.
I have to say my favorite comment was when we kept trumping each other. Somebody wrote like, "Yeah, this is not confusing at all." So yeah,
that's right. Yeah, that's right. All right, Andrew, I'll mention my list then. I wanted to mention World War Z, which I love. Throw out a mention of Jurassic World. And while we're there, The Lost World, Jurassic Park.
Yep.
Want to mention Waterworld, which is much better than you remember, I promise you. The World Is Not Enough, if we want to do a little Bond.
Yeah.
You know I love Bond, but I hate that Bond movie.
It's not great, but it's worth mentioning.
I like the terrible garbage song that came out for that one.
That's right. Let's see. What else haven't I mentioned? Cool World. You remember the movie Cool World?
I do.
Like animated Brad Pitt.
I remember Cool Runnings.
Well, no, it was a live action Brad Pitt having sex with animated Kim Basinger.
Animated characters, yes. Yeah,
and making her a real life girl.
That's right. It's a mad world.
It's under. Yep, I'll take that one off. It's buried under a big W.
I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore. If you haven't checked that one out, I think that's a valuable little title to find your way to. The World's Fastest Indian, which is
I was hoping that. Yeah, I love that movie. That movie is really so good.
Yeah, it's a really good movie. It really is. Of course, I have to mention How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, because I love the How to Train Your Dragon movies. And then I'll mention it, even though most people consider it the worst movie in the MCU. I'll mention Thor: The Dark World in there as well. So, yeah.
Nice.
What do you got, Andrew?
I got 4 more. The Thing from Another World. I think that John Carpenter's The Thing is the scariest movie ever made. A lot of people don't know that it's an adaptation of an old black and white movie, The Thing from Another World, which holds up to this day with some pretty interesting and unique uses of visual effects and lighting and stuff to make things seem real and more ominous. I'll throw out Westworld, not the show, the Yul Brynner movie that Michael Crichton directed as well as wrote. Underworld. I like Underworld. I don't think the movie's great. I just think that it's a fascinating, and it really lends itself to multiple stories. And yeah, they definitely went with that. They definitely went with telling lots of stories. But it's interesting concept.
We're certainly expanding our definition of the word honorable in these mentions.
You threw out World Is Not Enough, one of the worst Bond movies of all time. But I am going to end on a high note, and that is The History of the World, because Mel Brooks is a genius.
Yeah, oh, Jesus, yes.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Yes.
I'm sorry, History of the World Part 1.
Part 1, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That movie's funny. I need to rewatch that one. All right, let's move on to the buried treasure. What is that one thing in any area of pop culture that you want to make sure people know about? We let our guests finish off this, so I'll start us off. I got around in my end-of-year binge, trying to put together my year-end list, to watching a movie that I don't think technically came out in 2020, but it's just kind of making its way into the consciousness. It's a little sci-fi independent film called The Vast of Night, and I believe you can find it on Prime. And I did not love it as much as most of the people who recommended it to me love it. And I think the thing that you're going to fall in love with is the fact that it is an independent movie, and yet it's really technically well done. They do some pretty interesting things with long shots, and then it's interesting because they kind of almost go back and forth between like quick cuts and then like a big long, shot, and then they'll do quick cuts again. And the story itself isn't something necessarily that's, hasn't been done before. It's very much like a Twilight Zone type episode. In fact, the movie itself uses that framing in the movie, which I actually found a little bit distracting. It's one of the reasons I didn't like it as much as some. But the performances are good, and you just kind of go, how cool is it that somebody can make this on a shoestring budget and just make an independent movie like this? Now it's on Prime, and people are losing their minds over it. So I wanted to mention it. It's called The Vast of Night.
It looks like it kind of has a War of the Worlds element to it, the old radio.
Sure. Yeah, that's very Twilight Zone, I would say. Yeah. Yep.
Cool.
And there is that part of it that I did like. There's a lot dealing with radio, which I've been in radio before, and so there's that element of how cool is it to talk into a microphone and record your voice, and like that thing from when you were a kid where you're like, I want to be a DJ, and like that kind of stuff. That's in here, and so that did kind of appeal to me. But yeah, check it out. It's called The Vast of Night. Andrew, what do you got for your buried treasure?
I'm gonna go with season 9 of Letterkenny. You guys know me. I think that Letterkenny is one of, if not the funniest shows on TV right now. It is something that you have to know who you're recommending this to, because it's unlike any other comedy on TV. It's very lyrically based, like quick retorts, almost like if Aaron Sorkin did a whole bunch of cocaine and like everybody in his movies like talked 90 miles an hour, but it was like people are saying pitter patter, like in the it's so quotable. That's what I love about it. It's recurring jokes told over and over again, yet somehow they remain fresh, which I think is very hard to do. Like to have repeat jokes that you're like, oh, I'm glad that they brought that one back. You love these characters. Every single character in the show is so well thought out and created to where the town of Letterkenny feels so real, because it's based on the real life actions of all of these people. It's like a culmination of all the towns that grew up in around the same area of Canada. The show is great. If you haven't seen it, give the first couple episodes a watch, so you get an idea of like the way that the show is told and stuff. And if you don't like the stylization of like quick talking or the use of a lot of slang that you have to really like look up to see what it all means, but once you do, it's so rewarding, I think. So that is definitely my recommendation. They're all on Hulu. I watched the entire 9th season in one day because they're each like 20 minutes and there's only 7 episodes every season. So you can go through the whole thing really quickly.
Nice. What do you got, Juan?
I have a movie that came out at the end of October in Netflix, and it's called Vampires versus the Bronx. And I just feel that it's one of those like hidden gems that everybody should have been talking about, and it just could have slept right under the radar. It's very much, it hits that nostalgia spot for me. It's a very Monster Squad of it all, Goonies of it all. It's these kids who Latino kids who live in the Bronx, and they're buying all the locations, and then they sort of find out that the people who are gentrifying the neighborhood are vampires. And I love the fact that it's directed by Oz Rodriguez, who does a lot of the short films in Saturday Night Live right now. It's his first feature. It doesn't seem like it's his first feature, and the humor of it is, I like that the humor of it is very smart, but it doesn't sacrifice the conventions of a horror movie. So if you like vampire movies, but there's that thing. It exists in both genres, which made it really special for me. So definitely feel that a lot more people should check it out.
Did you mention? Did I hear you mention Attack the Block? Did you mention that movie? Because this reminds me a lot of the movie Attack the Block.
It does. I did not mention it, but it does have some things in common about it. Yeah. But the tone, but the tone of this is very much like it's a little bit more Monster Squad, Goonies than Attack the Block.
Got it. Got it.
So
okay.
It's just the plot is similar, but the tone of it is more that sort of 80s kids movie. But like I said, I like the fact that it's truly funny, smart comedy. And that doesn't throw the horror aspect just to sacrifice the comedy of it all.
Nice.
You want to hear something funny?
Sure.
Two of the actors in this movie are from Letterkenny.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool.
I don't think any of them were in Vast of Night, so unfortunately I failed. I failed to connect the dots, guys.
Yeah,
so I apologize.
Just like Clooney. See, you're the Clooney of this podcast. You did not connect the dots.
It's all my fault. Before we finish up, I do want to say, yes, this is usually when we would be doing our SIF Pop Movie Awards for the year. We will be doing those soon. I wanted to let you know those are coming. This has been obviously a strange year, and so a lot of the big releases have come later in the year, and we need a couple more weeks to prepare for that episode. May have some fun new twists to the SIF Pop Movie Awards this year. They may become the SIF Pop Yearly Awards. Maybe throw in some television in there as well. And so, it could be an interesting interesting award show, but that will be coming, and wanted to let you guys know about that. You can check out my personal top 41 of the year. My Fave 41 is out. You can check that out on my Letterboxd or my Twitter, as well as an update to my favorite movies of all time. Expanded that to 200. So my favorite 200 movies of all time are up on Letterboxd as well for you to check out. Well, we did it, guys. We did a podcast. We went to podcast space and returned home safely. It's amazing what can happen.
That's too much podcast.
So much.
That's way too much podcast.
Too much podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. SIFPOP is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out with me again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Huge thanks to our producer, Phil, for producing the show, both audio and video.
Thanks, Phil.
All right.
Thank you to Drew for putting together the graphics you see on the show.
Thank you, Drew.
And thank you to Juan for being our guest today. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Juan, is there anything you want to promote? Anywhere you want to send people? Tell them, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, I would have to say I'm very active in Instagram right now in terms of for the pandemic. I've been doing 2 recommendations a day, and I try to throw out things that people are not watching. So it's at Juan D. Pelicula de película for any of the people who know Spanish. It's Juan de película, or we can throw a little graphic later on. But yeah, and I do tweet in English and Spanish. So I did publish my top 10 of 2020. So you will find that there on IG. So if you can follow me, we can talk movies, and I'll be happy. There it is. There. Thank you so much. See. Show's got a producer.
That's producer Phil right there, man, coming through.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
So give me a follow there, and we can keep talking movies, which is my favorite subject.
Awesome. Much love and gratitude to our SIFPOP members as well for giving monthly to make SIFPOP a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month, and you get access to all the bonus episodes as well as other fun perks. You can find out more at patreon.com/SIFTPOP. You can connect with us in lots of ways. Feel free to rate, comment, leave a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Or you can email us. We actually have an email address, feedback@sifpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it, and that listening is much easier than being a terminal patient who outlives the rest of humanity. We will be back next week with another special guest. And in fact, I think Curious Low is going to join us next week. And
cool.
We'll talk Pieces of a Woman and probably one other movie. But we'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you to our video audience. Thanks for coming and hanging out during the live broadcast. You guys have been a blast to read your comments. And from all over the place, from YouTube, Twitch, Facebook. Thank you for hanging out with us. We do appreciate you. We're going to record a SIF spoil now on the Midnight Sky, but we're not going to do that live on video. So we will bid our adieu to our video audience. We love you.